The Grand Tour game is an episodic racing game, developed by Amazon Game Studios and Heavy Iron Studios. The idea was that each time a new episode from Season 3 of the Grand Tour arrived on Amazon Prime Video, the game will also receive a new update based on the episode. It was released on 15 January 2019, a few days before Season 3 of the Grand Tour aired. First impressions, the graphics are actually pretty decent. While it's not good enough to make the show-to-game transition less obvious, it's no mobile game. There's light reflecting off the cars and the colours are pretty vibrant. There's even environmental effects and a damaged model, although a little basic. The tracks are void of background happenings, but they look accurate and the landscapes are nicely detailed. Episodes exploring automotive history will use filters that make the game look like it's playing on an old telly set, which I think is a pretty nice touch. The Grand Tour is not a simulator, it's an arcade racer, only it's less like Need for Speed and more like Mario Kart or CTR. The driving controls are simple. There's your throttle, brake, steering, drift, and rotating camera. What should be a friendly arcade game is made annoying by the lag input in the steering. It takes a moment for the cars to respond to the analog stick. It makes entering corners and no-contact minigames unnecessarily difficult. I have to constantly predict the car's movement at each turn to avoid crashing. When you crash, it's a terrible experience in tight roads. You'll bounce back and forth like the other wall's unwanted problem. Drifting is pretty easy if you're attentive. Slow down when entering sharp corners to avoid doing a Hammond. And note that the drift button does not slow you down. Just don't brake too much or you won't have enough momentum to complete the drift. At the starting line, you can hold your accelerator during the countdown to get a head start, but there's no penalty for doing it too early, which I think is rather cheap. There are power-ups known as gadgets and you can collect 2 of them. Press the cross to activate one, or triangle to switch your gadgets. There are a total of 12 gadgets. Most of them are pretty conventional, such as the Whippy Slippy, lead balloons, and more horsepowers. But the game has some unique ideas. Elephant Race spawns a temporary AI racer that will tail you and block other players. Smoke abilities like Candy Fog are non-existent among card games, and it's only potentially devastating if you don't avoid it. Other gadgets can get very annoying. Nuisance calls should only be a nuisance and not make your car lose control. Texting blinds and slows down cars ahead of you, like the blooper, but it's one of the more common gadgets and you can receive a barrage of them. Worse still, you can get affected by multiple gadgets at once. Getting both a text and musical idiots is more of an annoyance than an actual challenge. One aspect I do like about the gadgets is that once activated, the gadget is put on a timer. In the meantime, you can't pick up a new one if you still have 2, or switch to your second gadget. This is definitely a good idea for reducing ability spamming, but it doesn't do enough to fix the other problems with the gadget system. That said, you don't need gadgets to screw over the bots or your non-existent friends. You can physically smash other cars and even force them off the course, but with the risk of slowing down. The game's core content is single player. When the game launched, it started with the first episodes of Season 1 and 2. By the end of Season 3, the game has a total of 16 episodes. Each episode is made up of scenes, the minigame challenges where you play the show. New buyers have to play the episodes in order to unlock the next. Once you complete an episode, you can access and play any of the scenes. You'll receive medals based on your performance: gold, silver, bronze, and toilet flush. Because the Grand Tour is a linear show, winning or losing doesn't affect the story. However, I like that I'm not required to restart over a toilet flush, and the medal system guilts you into getting gold. The episodes are largely made up of very basic driving challenges. You have your usual races, time attacks, drifting, top speed runs, etc. Since the show is mostly just these 3 driving around, it's not like they can do much to make it more interesting. But whenever the hosts play shenanigans, the game adapts them. In no particular order, we have Burnout Paradise, Drag Races, Crowd Crushing, Tug of War, Animal Crossing, Fast and Furious, Drafting, Photo Taking, Puzzles, The Dick Joke, The Piss Joke, Fireworks, Terrorism, GeForce, Strand Type Game, Hell on Earth, Breaking Bad, First Person, and E-Scooters. The pictures and puzzle minigames are often used as an easy way to add more scenes. In some cases, like the Mongolia special, the puzzle minigame was used to replace the entire construction scene. Unique minigames like drag racing and target shooting make some episodes a little bit more fun, but because of the show's format, they are far and few between. There's a lot of attention to detail in single player, like when Clarkson's Aventador stops when he kills his tires.
Oh my word.
Or when John's steering was reversed.
Then suddenly you can't go to the left. Hang on, the wheels are to... Hey?
There's also some odd gameplay choices. The gun aiming is locked to the left stick instead of the right, and the Demolition Derby is based on the number of hits you inflict in a given time instead of any health bars. Come to think of it, I don't think this game has a drafting mechanism, and the hood view isn't an option. These things could have given the base gameplay a little bit more depth. Some parts of the show aren't included in the game, such as the Lambo Urus's attempted snow climb. There wasn't a single celebrity face-off scene, although that would have been very repetitive gameplay-wise. In between the minigames are cutscenes, which are essentially loading screens. You can press on Clarkson's face to fast forward,
Here we go! He got the hang of it.
or maze to reverse. It's annoying that you're restricted to fast forwarding and reversing to certain checkpoints in each cutscene, instead of being given full control. I get it for the start and end of the cutscenes to allow the next gameplay scene to load, but if you want to check a certain part of the cutscene again, you'd have to return to the last checkpoint and wait. In some cutscenes, there are large gaps between the checkpoints. In episode 4, Pick Up Put Downs, the end cutscene was unskippable. In the racing scenes, you can sometimes hear dialogue from the show.
The A110 is in fact a mid-engine, rear-drive sports car designed from scratch on a clean sheet of paper.
The implementation is quite immersive, but there are times when they are just silent. I can only assume that it was difficult to fit appropriate dialogue in all of the scenes. What disappoints me most about this single-player experience is that you can't enjoy it with your mates. Split screen was one of the game's biggest marketing points, but it doesn't give me the option to fool around with 2 other friends in the single-player episodes. Sure, we could always just share the controller, and making co-op episodes might be difficult when many of the scenes are meant for one presenter, and sometimes entire episodes just have one presenter per segment. But having the option for episodes where co-op can work best could have made for a unique couch co-op experience. Once you're done with single player, you can head on over to local split screen. Local split screen gives you 2 modes. Face Off gives you more control over the race settings, while Grand Prix gives you sets of 3 tracks, similar to Mario Kart's Cups but with no actual rewards. You can race up to 3 friends on the couch, but if you're stuck in quarantine, up to 3 bots will stand in for them. You begin with options for your racing sessions. Choose your car class, number of laps, activate gadgets, etc. The Grand Prix mode has less options. You can choose between 4 characters: a monkey, a minute fire hazard, James May, and the American's replacement. It doesn't change anything beyond the whining and gloating voice lines you'll hear, and the text messages your opponents will receive. Speaking of characters, that's probably why the game only allows 3 AI opponents. But it makes playing solo very boring, especially on the larger courses. I don't care if I have to handle 11 Clarksons, the game already doesn't have online multiplayer. At the very least, it needs more AI opponents on the track. The presence of Elephant Race indicates that the game can handle more AI races. The bots themselves aren't even challenging. I played a few games with the hardest AI difficulty, and once you take first place, it's easy to win, so long as you don't slow down to get footage of the gadgets. In split screen, you can drive 73 cars: Coupes, Muscle, Sport, Super, Hyper, Off-Road, Road, Classics, Track Classics, and Special. There are 3 additional pre-order bonus cars and 4 more acquired through Twitch Prime. It's a decent size, but with the exception of the special class, the cars feel a little bit samey within their respective classes. Or maybe that's just my imagination. Only a few cars have color options, and there's no customization, vehicle upgrades, or a career system. But they look well detailed. Some of the supercars and hypercars even have spoilers that adjust according to your speed, and I believe most of the engine sounds are accurate to their real-life counterparts. There are about 23 playable racing courses, excluding the reverse versions. It's a mix of sprint and lapped courses. The lapped courses have anywhere between 2 to 4 laps, depending on their length. Some courses come with gameplay effects, like the snow course that basically puts you on full-time drift mode. Unfortunately, the courses don't have rotating time settings or the option to change them, even though some tracks had different time settings in different single-player scenes. Additionally, not all of the single-player courses are available in split screen. The off-road field in Wales, the driver's ed course in Chongqing, China, the massive Mongolian landscape, the Columbia field, and the drag strips. Occasionally, there are some frustrating bugs. On China's 24 curved road, for example, you can get stuck on the edge of the road. Ramming the throttle or reverse will be met with lots of sound and no movement. But I didn't notice any game-breaking issues like huge bugs or FPS drops, except for this. Fun facts. Several YouTubers received early access to the game. In their videos, the main menu displayed an online multiplayer mode that was coming soon. There was even a section in the driving records that stated the amount of time played online. This option was removed shortly after the game's release. However, Black Panther found that the PlayStation 4's share function can technically allow you to play online with another person. In episode 5 in Ichiurus, James May's Elfine A110 review was not initially included. The segment later arrived as 3 new scenes, alongside the episode 9 update, Aston, Astronauts and Angelina's Children. Several cars were not playable in the game. The McLaren Senna review in Motown Funk was replaced by Hammond's McLaren 720S review from the Season 2 episode, unscripted.
Hello fellow driving enthusiasts, James here. Owing to the unique way we make video games, we are sadly unable to have the McLaren Senna in this episode for now. Apologies for that. As a sort of consolation prize, we're going to go back and look at Hammond driving the equally fantastic McLaren 720S from Season 2. It's a cracker, apart from the Hammond bit.
When the Youth Vote aired, Toyota had an exclusive licensing deal with the Gran Turismo franchise, so the Yaris GRMN was only playable as a single photo-taking minigame. The Hongqi L5 in Chinese food for thought was only shown in a cutscene, while the M18 New Stratos in Legends and Luggage didn't even get a cutscene. While the Jaguar XC-SV Project 8 was playable, the British super sedan was covered in bubble wrap and called the Popmobile. Lemon Sky Studios produced several of the game's assets, including helmeted character models of Abby Eaton and James May. I'm presuming that they also did Jeremy Clarkson and Richard Hammond. There is a Grand Tour Game YouTube channel and Instagram page, which release update videos every week for each new episode. The adverts are narrated by James May. On the game website, there used to be a link to a community forum, but it is currently removed. There is a whining and moaning meter in the settings. The game's creative director is Craig Sullivan. Prior to joining Amazon, Sullivan was the lead designer for Burnout 3 and Burnout Paradise under Criterion. Later he became a creative director at Ghost Games, most notably handling Need for Speed 2015. The game is an experiment for episodic games to work alongside Amazon Prime Video. Unfortunately, that seems to be the extent of the game's vision. The simple controls are made unnecessarily frustrating by the handling system's lag input. You can only race against 3 bots and there's no online multiplayer. What confuses me most is that the minigames are exclusive to single player. I can accept that the single player experience doesn't have any co-op mode, but the game could have set itself apart beyond the episodic concept by reusing the minigames for a Mario Party-esque game mode. After all, why not just make the most out of all the effort spent? Ultimately, the Grand Tour is a simple $30 game. It's got enough single player content to make it worth the cash, and you get to watch most parts of the show. Still, it's a missed opportunity. Not only does it fail to provide a stress-relieving experience as a casual racing game, but it also doesn't take advantage of its pros to provide a grand juvenile experience expected of a product bearing the trio's image. Maybe the split screen might redeem it, but until quarantine is up and friends can come over, we'll have to wait and see.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to end. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.